here. These calls are awesome, and we do them every week for the purpose of education. Every week, we have calls about metabolic health, and we have doctors, nutritionists, dietitians, and all kinds of other medical health professionals, experts, teaching people how to improve their metabolic health naturally. I personally have learned so much from hosting and attending these calls. It is honestly, and I'm not exaggerating, it has changed my life. So if you're here for the first time, would you put a new in the chat? We have about 300 people here on the live Zoom, and that number is growing as we speak. Todd Ross is new. Kim is new. A lot of people are new here, okay? So if you're new, Dina's new, Abe is new, Kim is new, Tamara's new. Lots of people here for the first time. If you're new, put a new in the chat. Welcome. Now, if you are a repeat visitor, if you've been on more than one call, would you put repeat in the chat? You're going to find that there are lots of people that are here that have been here before. And the reason why people like to come to these calls over and over is number one, for the education, and number two, for the results. I would guess that on this call with 300 people on a live Zoom, we have dozens and dozens that have reversed many of their health problems and reversed them in the most dramatic fashion. And so how is that possible, right? Maybe you're somebody that is struggling with your metabolic health, whether it's weight control or blood sugar control or cholesterol, or maybe it's blood pressure, or maybe it's belly fat, or maybe you're on medications you don't want to be on, right? All of these things can often be addressed by addressing just one thing. And on these calls, we like to talk about what that is. Now, I better go ahead and do a very, very brief introduction of myself. I am not the guest that we need to really celebrate tonight. We have other guests, and I can't wait to get to them. But just so that we can set the table, let me explain who I am. My name is Trent, and I make videos on social media and have a strong following on social media teaching people about metabolic health. I like to study this. I like to talk about this. I like to learn about this. And my motivation for that is this wonderful guy right here, standing next to me in the picture. This is my dad, and my dad is now dead. My dad died about 8 years ago from stage 4 colon cancer. And when my dad got sick, the cancer had already spread all over his body. My dad, long before having colon cancer, had a number of other problems. He had problems like fatty liver, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. He was a pre-diabetic. He had a skin problem all over his body known as psoriasis that basically was from wrist to ankle. He had horrible gut health. And my dad, despite being the best guy I've ever met in my life, had one of the worst diets that I've ever seen in my life. And when my dad was stressed, he would turn to food. And I am the same way. And so most of my life, I've been a yo-yo dieter, where if I'm not on a diet, it feels like I'm gaining weight. So some of you may be familiar with the term insulin resistance, and most of you are probably not familiar with that term yet. We now know that this underlying problem of insulin resistance often happens years before the other problems, right? So when somebody struggles with weight control or fatty liver or any of these problems, before these problems get very serious, the person is insulin resistant. The good news is that no matter how severe these problems are today, you can often limit the problems and sometimes even reverse the problems by just focusing on insulin resistance. We want to teach you how to do that in the simplest, cheapest, most effective way. And on these calls, we hope to educate and empower you so that if your dad or mom or loved one or you yourself is struggling, you can make an intervention and save their lives. So if you're here for the first time, whoever invited you to this call wants you to learn and see what we're doing. And I promise it's going to be a great show. Now, as just kind of by tradition, what we like to do at the beginning of these calls is we like to bring in guests. And these guests are people that not long ago were brand new on their first call. And they listened and they learned and then they tried this protocol. Now, I'll get to the protocol later in the call and explain exactly what we do. We do a little bit of fasting, nothing crazy, just a little bit of fasting. and we do a little bit of fiber. So fiber and fasting. And we have a twist on both of those. It's a little unconventional, but it works fantastically. And so this is a beautiful couple that had come to a call and had learned about this fiber and fasting and has been following it. And their results are quite incredible. So let me introduce you to Elisa and Samson Cantu. Who are you guys? Why don't you just start off by introducing yourselves? Where are you from and what do you do?
Sure. So, as Trent said, I'm Samson. This is my wife, Elisa. We are a military family, or we were recently retired a couple years ago. And we landed here in the great state of Louisiana, where we call home now. Um, so, that's a little bit about us. We have four beautiful daughters. We have a beautiful granddaughter. We have a son-in-law and a couple son-in-laws to be. So, that's basically our a little bit about us. We got started on the product in for
March.
for me, it was actually a year ago today, if you can believe that. So
Really?
March 3rd
Yeah.
of 2025 was the day that the light clicked on for me, and I knew I had to lock in and make a decision. If I could back up just a little bit before that, it started with a broken blood panel. I went to the doctor on a men's health wellness checkup, which it's a plug for you men out there. Go ahead and get that scheduled and go do it. Um, but I noticed after I retired, I didn't have the running, I didn't have the weigh-ins that the military makes us do, so I lost a lot of accountability. Um, but I could tell, it started off with not sleeping well. So what happens when you don't sleep well? You wake up groggy and you're fatigued all day. So there I was chasing caffeine and trying to um, keep myself going throughout the day, not realizing that those caffeine drinks, you name them, I've tried them all, um, led me to having inflammation issues and whatnot. And so there I was not understanding why my body was fatigued and why I was inflamed. And, and I just thought that was normal. I grew up with, woke up in the morning with aches and pains and I just said, hey, this is life. Let me take some Motrin. Let me take some Advil or something and just carry on with my day. So that was a little bit about how I knew my health was starting to go in the wrong direction. And then, like I said, that blood panel really woke me up. I quickly heard the words from the doctor, we want to put you on this medicine and that medicine. And, I was 44 years old at the time, and I thought that's not the direction I want to go. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a beautiful granddaughter, and we want to see her grow up, and we want to have the energy and the health to spend time with her and to go on vacations with her. So I knew we had to do something. And we had saw one of Trent's videos long ago, and so we took a stab at it, a gamble. We are a little reluctant at first, but
I was
tuning
very reluctant.
tuning into the calls and learning how to use the protocol. And really, like I said, there was a little bit of desperation, but we turned that desperation into discipline, and we got after the protocol. Um, like I said, I've been on it personally for a year now, and my results were almost immediately. I would say within a month, I had lost 17 pounds.
Holy
Um,
cow.
and, and then within about 3 months, I noticed my blood markers were going in the right direction. And that's what I mean, that's ultimately, it wasn't about weight loss. It was more about being healthy, living a healthy life. And a year from then, I'm still able to keep it off and absolutely love the protocol. And I think we're here to stay.
My results weren't as quick. Like for me, I slowly started seeing my health decrease, even though I was doing everything the same. And even though thought I was healthy, I've always been pretty healthy my whole life. But the last 4 or 5 years, everyone told me it was perimenopause, it was aging. And I allowed myself to start believing that. I had the aches and pains, I had migraines, the weight gain. And very gluten sensitive for about 15
Mm,
years.
yeah.
I couldn't go anywhere and eat what everybody was eating, visiting family, going on vacations. I was limited. And then same, I got my blood work and I was pre-diabetic. And I think that was the wake up call for me. And so being the nerd that I am, I started researching everything, because I did not want to go on medicines. And I found the yerba mate plant. That was my first intro to this protocol. And I just thought it was amazing, the yerba mate plant. And so I went and I got the teas and started drinking it. And then he found your TikTok and I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. I'm not messing with that. But I was like, no, let's just try it. It's only, 159. Let's do it. It's our health, it is our health. And the first thing I noticed was the energy because I was so tired all the time. I was chasing down the sugar-free energy drinks 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I needed a nap. It was horrible. But the first tea I had, I was up, like no nap, ready to go. Like
Clean energy.
that was it. But it did take me about 2 months for me to really like my migraines. Like I do the 31 shots of Botox in my head. I mean, it was really bad. I can say I've had maybe 3 migraines since, and that's really due to like severe weather. But the health, my improvement has been so dramatic. And I didn't even realize I had lost the weight. That was a byproduct. At this point, I just wanted to get healthy. And once I was able to fix my health and my gut, the weight came off. That was just such, it wasn't even my focus because I felt so good that I wasn't realizing the weight was coming off. And I can eat gluten again. Like that is, I know everybody loves the tea because it tastes so good and you feel really good. But the fact that I can go out and I can celebrate with my family, and we just got back from Disney with my granddaughter, and I could eat the foods and not have to run to a bathroom or go lie down and with the cramping. Like the fiber has just been, I don't want to say magic, but it's been 15 years. I haven't eaten gluten. I wasn't eating dairy and just being consistent and putting forth the work. I've been able to improve my health and fix my gut. And it's just, I'm so happy that we found this protocol. And now I can't talk telling everybody about it. Like anybody who will listen and who wants to put forth the effort, I want to share this with them because it has been such a blessing in our lives.
Well, this is awesome. And I want to show some before and after pictures here that I have of you guys. Now, everybody in the chat is saying there's no way you guys are grandparents because you do look so young, right? But I want to show people what you look like a year ago. All right. Now, before I do that, you mentioned, I did not know this about you, Elisa. You mentioned that you had migraines, and you said in the last year you've only had three of them. What would a
Three
year
that I can
look
remember.
like? What would a year look like prior to the protocol? How many in a year?
Oh gosh. I'd have them weekly. Um, and I know it was my diet. Now that I understand how insulin and my metabolic health
Yeah.
affects that and what I put into my mouth, I like these science calls have been so good. And of course, more
Information.
research.
Yeah.
The information has just been so pivotal in this transformation. Yes, the protocol is an amazing tool, but these science calls teach you and help you understand how this protocol works with our bodies. So yeah.
Okay, amazing. Do me a favor. Those of you in the chat, and we'll move on here because we got a lot to cover. If you have had relief in the areas of, let's see what we've covered. Migraines, right? Migraines in the chat. If you've had relief in terms of migraines, if you've had relief in terms of gut health, like gluten tolerance or intolerance, rather, lactose intolerance, maybe put gut health in the chat if you've received relief in terms of gut health. If you've lost weight, Samson said he lost 17 pounds in the first month. Hey guys, results not guaranteed. That is not typical, but it does happen from time to time, and that is crazy, right? Weight or lost weight. Yeah, maybe lost weight in the chat. I want all of you that are new to see that this is happening, right? Last one, pre-diabetes. If you have been pre-diabetic and have reversed that on this protocol, will you write pre-diabetes in the chat? Look at this. Okay, there's 500 people here in the live Zoom, thousands more watching on the restreams, and I can't see all their comments, but this is incredible. Okay, so I'm going to show a quick before and after, and I'm going to zoom in on one. So just one second. So this one's going to be Elisa before. Now, everybody look at Elisa real fast. Look at her face, right? Lovely grandmother, whatever. Um, let's see here. So here comes Elisa before. I'm just gonna share my screen here. This is Elisa before. And Elisa, if you told me that this person was a picture of your mother, I'd probably believe it. One of the things that really struck me about these photos is how much younger you look. So there's the
Thank
side
you.
by side before and after. If you told me that was your older sister, I would believe you. Yeah. And let's look at Samson. So this is Samson before, right? And this is Samson wearing the same shirt, I believe, after.
Yeah.
Just incredible, guys. Thanks so much for being our guest on the call. Okay, last thing, we got to move on, but anything you would say to somebody that is maybe skeptical, like you guys were, that hasn't started the protocol or that's here for the first time?
Just do it. Stick to it. Don't just buy it. Do it. Be honest with yourself. Because we did. I had it and I didn't really quite stick with it at first, but I did it, and commit yourself and you'll get the progress.
I would add to that, how can we take care of one another? How can I take care of my family if I'm not taking care of myself? I'm the provider and the protector, and I've got to do my part in order to help my family. So health is a priority for me.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. Elisa, would you mind, and Samson too, both of you, if you'd like, would you mind putting your handles in the chat for anybody that wants to follow your guys' journey? I mean, this is such a great story. Would you put it in the chat? I'd love to get more eyeballs on you guys. You guys are awesome. So thanks so much for being here. Okay, that was amazing. And that's what it's all about. All right. Well, you're going to hear a lot more crazy, incredible, wonderful stories like that as we go throughout the call. But we have a lot to cover and not much time to cover it in. And so I want to introduce our guest tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about calories and chemistry. Have you ever been told that it's all about the calories, right? Calories in, calories out. It's that simple. If you could just figure out the calories, if you could just eat less and move more, right, your problem would be solved. Well, what about for all the people who have tried to eat less and move more and it hasn't been that simple? So my guest tonight is Anna Polich. Anna is from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and Anna is a nutritionist and a health coach. She spends all day, every day, helping people improve their metabolic health. And honestly, a lot of the people that she works with are people that others have not been able to help. So she is helping sometimes those misfits, and those that haven't had success in other areas are coming to her saying, please help, save me. I'm broken, right? Anna's got an incredible story, and she's going to be talking about calories and chemistry. So I'll minimize myself and turn the time over to you for the next little stretch here, Anna.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So I'm Anna Polich. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, which many people call the armpit of the world. But I see there's lots of Canadians on here, so that's really exciting to see. So today I just want to talk a little bit about my journey, because I coach people, but I don't just talk the talk. I've walked the walk for many years, and I really resonated with Elisa talking about like learning about something and then diving into the science and just researching it fully, because that is really how I got where I was. And so I cracked my own code to reverse my own prediabetes and other health conditions. So here's some pictures of me, and I am a nutritionist, but I also had a degree in human biology, chemical and biosciences technology. I'm a nutritionist, a personal trainer. I was a keto coach, but I just spent the majority of my adult life overweight, and I just couldn't figure it out. And like a lot of my clients, before I lost my weight, I was spending 5 days a week at a high intensity boot camp because that was what we were told would help us to lose weight. And I didn't lose a single pound. And every time they weighed us in on that scale and checked our body fat, and nothing was happening for me. But I was also eating all the time, especially overeating on the weekends, and I was eating the wrong foods. And I have a strong family history of type 2 diabetes. I struggled with autoimmune thyroid disease. So I essentially blamed these health conditions because, I just thought that was how I had to live. And I went on to struggle with infertility. So we tried to get pregnant with our first child. And that's when I ran into the first doctor that actually brought to my attention insulin resistance, which led me on, a real a real journey to essentially research everything about that and why I was struggling with that. And then I just really realized that my body fat was, just a symptom of a deeper rooted problem. So on the left, that was me when I was toggling between essentially dieting and binging. I was good all week. Like, I think most can probably resonate with this. I was good all week. I stuck to my plan, my super calorie restricted plan, my, high intensity interval training. And then the weekend would hit and I would binge, and it caught up with me because I was essentially hammering my cells with processed, what I like to call garbage, every weekend. My claim to fame was I could eat 2 giant bags of, these are Canadian old Dutch potato chips, like 2 of them. I would have one as a snack and the next one was my dessert. But then Monday would come and my diet would start again. And I would do it all over again. And then, of course, I tried all the diets. So, when I learned about these products, I was a bit skeptical as well because I had tried them all. I tried the Herbal Magic, the LA weight loss, the cabbage soup diet. Someone even told me about a beef jerky and Diet Coke diet. Like, you name it, I tried it, but it was all short term. And I would figure it out eventually. So this was me. I couldn't control myself around food. I used to say, my other claim to fame was like, I could eat and eat, and I just didn't have an off switch. So I essentially ran my own N=1 experiment. And this is why a lot of my clients say they trust me because they've heard my journey and I'm not just preaching the textbook info. I've really tried it all. So this was my transformation up to date. I am always going to be on a journey, of just becoming healthy with, like Elisa said, the side effect of fat loss. So I lost over 60 pounds. I've lowered my A1C. I was in the pre-diabetic range. And I've, resolved a lot of my own health issues. So my personal turning point was realizing that weight loss wasn't about eating less and exercising more, despite, all of what my doctor continued to tell me. And I saw how blood sugar swings could drive hunger and fatigue and fat storage. And I learned that, metabolism was hormonal, not mathematical. So that's where the calories versus chemistry comes in. So, essentially, despite your doctor or dietitian telling you to eat less and exercise more, you continue to gain weight, because there is more to the story. So, I'm going to tell you some of the secrets that your doctor doesn't tell you. So why most diets fail, is because, like I said, we're white knuckling it through the week and we're draining our willpower, to stick with this super calorie restricted diet. And we're hungry and we're craving everything we know we shouldn't have. So we quit and we feel guilty and feel stuck and we're frustrated and we get angry at ourselves and we just think we're a failure. But what you need to do is to switch off your hunger and cravings so that you can handle them, right? By eating the right foods. So this is human physiology, right? So if I gave you 7 ounces of steak and a large order of French fries, they have the same amount of calories, but the steak will keep you full for hours on end, especially if you pair it with fiber, which a lot of us know. But the fries will make you hungry within the hour because they were engineered that way. So you keep coming back for more. So essentially what's supposed to happen is when you've had enough, your your fullness hormones would typically send that message to your brain that you've had enough and it's time to stop eating. But certain foods actually bypass those fullness hormones, like the giant bags of potato chips that I used to eat, and they trigger your hunger hormones. So they actually have scientists that work in the lab trying to develop these foods. Like, I'm sure you've all seen the commercial with the Lay's. I bet you just can't eat. I bet you can't just eat one, right? The scientists work on that so that you crave more of those foods. So even when you've eaten more than enough calories, that's how they're designed. So your doctor's advice to eat in moderation and control portions and restrict calories falls flat because you can't moderate foods that were designed to override fullness hormones and stimulate your hunger hormones. It's just a no-win situation. So what you need to do is to replace the foods that make you hungry with foods that keep you full and satisfied. So you need to take those hunger stimulating foods out and replace them with foods that balance the hunger and fullness hormones. So in essence, a low carb way of eating, high protein, high fiber, low carb will actually lead to less hunger and less glucose spikes and therefore less insulin spikes. So like I said, protein, fiber, healthy fats, and carbs sprinkled in, which leads me to my next slide, because this is one of the things I teach my clients is to eat your food in the right order. The order in which we eat our food matters, right? So the majority of the population is not eating enough fiber, for one. I am the culprit of that. And protein. Everyone is eating lower protein and they rely heavily on packaged and processed foods. So it's really important to lead your meals with fiber and protein. Protein stabilizes glucose, it improves satiety hormones. Fiber slows carbohydrate absorption and it blunts blood sugar spikes. And that just helps reduce your cravings naturally. It helps you stay fuller longer and prevent energy crashes. And I always say have carbs as dessert, right? So many people, I know my mother-in-law, she used to tell me she made cookies, but they were sugar-free because she used to take the cookies and roll them in sugar, like for the coating, which, I loved. So she just didn't roll them in the sugar. So they didn't have sugar, but she didn't understand that carbs turn to sugar. So I always say carbs as dessert. If you've eaten your fiber and protein, you can have the carbs at the end of the meal, and that will help blunt the glucose spike. So another thing that I usually challenge people to is to try and eat foods without a label. And if they have a label, so if it's not just meat, veggies, fruit, any of those, if the food has a label, try and eat foods with less than 5 ingredients on the label. And I think this surprises a lot of people when they go to the grocery store and they look at how many ingredients are in the packaged foods that they're eating. So we also want to ignite fat burning mode because your body either runs on carbs or fat. So you have two fuels, you have carbs and fat, but your body only burns one at a time. So if you think of it in a way that you're trying to start a campfire and carbohydrates, which is glucose or carbs that you eat, are like the crumpled newspaper. That's how we used to start fires. We'd throw newspaper in there and it would go up in flames. So that is the carbohydrates. They ignite instantly and they're a quick energy. They give you that quick heat. Your body loves using them because they're easy and they're efficient. And who doesn't like easy and efficient, right? Even our bodies do. But paper burns fast and disappears quickly. So you have to keep throwing in more. And if you add too much paper, it smokes up the room, right? So this is like blood sugar spikes. And then it takes a while for you to come down from that. But because the fire is always busy burning paper, it never gets around to the logs sitting underneath. And the logs are your body fat. So the thing is, you feel hungry often, your energy goes up and down because you're burning the paper, and then you need to throw more paper in. And those logs take longer to catch, and that's part of it, right? But once they do, they burn slow and steady and for hours, and your body can use your body fat as fuel, right? These logs will produce consistent heat without needing that constant refueling. So essentially, you get stable energy, fewer cravings, longer satiety, and your body finally uses the stored fat. So insulin, so every time you eat, and especially when you eat carbs, but anytime you eat, insulin is released. And insulin is a hormone made by your pancreas that acts like a traffic controller, essentially. So it controls where the nutrients go, especially glucose. So its main job is to move energy from your bloodstream into your cells where it can actually be used or stored. So that is the goal of insulin. Grab the sugar, move it into your cells. It's kind of like the key to the door of your cells, and your cells are like locked houses. So the glucose is essentially standing outside trying to get in, and insulin unlocks the door. But sometimes insulin has to continue to knock on the door because the lock gets stuck and the cells become less responsive to insulin's knocking. So it kind of tunes out that constant noise. So what the pancreas does is it compensates by producing more insulin to keep blood sugar controlled. And this chronic high insulin state pushes the body towards that insulin resistant state. That's where you see the increased hunger, the difficulty losing fat, and then eventually over time, you getting blood glucose levels if that cycle isn't interrupted. And that's insulin resistance and how it develops, and it leads to type 2 diabetes. And here in Canada, there are very few physicians that actually test fasting insulin levels. So fasting insulin is different than fasting glucose. People often get them confused, but fasting insulin levels are often high for years before you would see it in your blood glucose levels. But doctors are only catching it once it shows up as a high blood glucose level. So we can catch this years before. So this graph shows what happens to insulin levels with the standard advice of eating, 6 small meals a day. So your fat fertilizing hormone is essentially turned on. So the green is the increased insulin when you're eating, and the blue is the decreased insulin when you're fasting. So essentially, you should always either be feasting or fasting if you want to lose weight. And, because when you eat frequently and you eat a lot of refined carbs, again, you get those insulin spikes, right? So you get the blood sugar, it rises quickly, insulin spikes come to bring it down, blood sugar drops too low, the brain says, eat again, preferably sugar, because I like to burn that really fast. And then the cycle repeats, and then you're in fat storage mode all day long. So great, if you're grazing all day, if you're just like having little snacks all day long, you would just have green peaks all day long, and your body can't burn fat if insulin is constantly present. And it's just essentially telling your body to store it. It's fertilizing the fat. So how you can get around this, as I'm sure you've kind of figured out, is you can play with your eating window, right? So if you've done intermittent fasting, heard of intermittent fasting, this was my first, the first thing I tried was shortening my eating window to 8 hours a day. That's a popular option. What this means is you have all your meals in 8 hours, which leaves you 16 hours to not eat, which the majority of it is usually while you're sleeping. And during this time, your insulin levels are low and you are in fat burning mode. So an example is eating only between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. But at the very least, just stop snacking. Have your 3 meals a day that have lots of fullness stimulating foods in them. So this is more of like a time blocked eating. It's not about starving, it's about giving insulin time to come down. So 3 structured meals is way better than grazing all day, because it allows your body to switch from a sugar burner to being a fat burner, and it improves your insulin sensitivity and your energy overall. So we're not talking about restricting foods, but we're rather creating metabolic rest periods, just so your metabolism can have that time to work properly. So, um, like I say, intermittent fasting is when you are going to have a chance to eat your own belly fat. So we dealt with hunger by reducing carbs, eating foods in the right order, adding fiber, increasing protein. When you're not eating, you're fasting. Like I said, intermittent fasting is a very popular place to start. Best way to lower your insulin levels and then get you into fat burning mode. And then introduce supplements if needed, which are very helpful because they can bridge nutritional gaps. They can optimize a lot of things, mental performance, support recovery. And supplements are metabolic aids that support your healthy lifestyle and your habits. So in combination, and they help you to move closer to that healthy lifestyle. They're helpers, like training wheels, I like to say. Like the fiber supplement, that acts like a speed bump for glucose. It slows digestion. It helps with, a smoother blood sugar response. It helps fullness signals reach the brain sooner, and it makes it easier to avoid snacking or overeating. And then, many people talked about the, metabolic support drink. So the yerba mate, which I absolutely love. I love the flavor of it. I could, drink it in my sleep, but I still have some to finish off for tonight, but that helps. I actually wear a CGM often, so I have tested the products because I am a science nerd. So I wore a CGM, I tested the products. I saw that, it helped my glucose. It helped to reduce any post-meal spikes. My cravings were under control. My appetite, it was weird because, I was on my own journey. I have lost a lot of weight. I'm still on a journey trying to build more muscle, but that level up of appetite control and less cravings was just amazing. And it really, I'm busy. I have two kids now. I'm their personal Uber driver, driving them around to all their activities. And a lot of times I am unable to feed myself. They are fed. So I love the yerba mate. I have a water in my car all the time. I have the packets loaded in my center console. I think I saw somebody with their TikTok, they showed their center console full of them. That is me. So, I don't see it as another weight loss product. I see it as, metabolic support. And I really think it's, such a great system to help you rebuild that foundation in the background. And again, it doesn't have the side effects of GLP-1s. I years ago tried a GLP-1 myself. I work in the field of diabetes full time. It just wasn't for me. And I am not against GLP-1s. I think they are another tool that people have, and I coach a lot of people that are on them. But regardless of whatever you take, you do need to change your nutrition and lifestyle in order to create good habits. So the great news is that you can still live your life and reach your health goals. Reaching your health goals doesn't have to feel like a root canal. And I think that's what we were taught in the past. So, as Trent mentioned earlier, this is my version, but you can prevent or in some cases, reverse chronic disease, like myself. My family history of type 2 diabetes didn't have to dictate my outcomes. And if you take pretty much any chronic modern disease, listed here, PCOS, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, fatty liver, Alzheimer's, which they call type 3 diabetes, they are all rooted in insulin resistance and insulin levels being too high over time. So if you're living with any of these conditions or you want to reduce your risk of developing these conditions, you'll want to follow some of the phases we just talked about. So my quick start steps that I talked about in summary, eat 2 to 3 meals, stop grazing in between meals, stop snacking, build your meals around protein and fiber first. Leave 4 to 5 hours between meals when possible. Stop eating at 7 p.m. That alone can be a game changer when you really extend that fasting window overnight, and use metabolic supports if needed to smooth the transition. It's not extreme, it's not keto, it's not about perfection, it's just about retraining your metabolism.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anna. This is awesome. And I just absolutely enjoyed every second of that. It was awesome. We're going to try to bring Anna back at the end if we have time. We're going to go quickly and try to have some time for some Q&A. So if you have a question for nutritionist health coach Anna, we'll be able to ask those questions here in a moment. But Anna, would you mind putting your social handles in the chat so that people that want to follow you and see your content could do that? That would be awesome. So thank you so much. I want to just point out one thing about calories and chemistry that was absolutely paradigm shifting for me. It was a paradigm shift that helped me change the way I think about calories and chemistry. And I also want to explain the protocol. We have so many medical professionals on tonight's call. We're grateful for you guys. We're glad that you're here. So many medical professionals behind what we're doing. And many of you we're going to be featuring on upcoming calls. So it's great to have you here. I want to give a shout out to them here in a moment. But I want to explain one thing in very, very layman's terms to everybody that really makes sense to me. I learned this from Dr. Jason Fung. Okay. So if you've read Diabetes Code or Obesity Code, I learned this from Dr. Jason Fung. So Anna talked about this. This is a Trent dumbed down version of it. When insulin is low, it is a message to the body to be burning fat, to be burning calories. Okay. So let's say that your body requires about 2,000 calories a day to function. And let's say that you give your body only 1,500 calories from food. If insulin is low, okay, if insulin is low, and this is the big if, your body is able to easily get the other 500 calories from fat. The body is happy because it is getting everything that it needs, either from food or from fat. And it can do that so long as insulin is low. What happens when we have a calorie deficit, but insulin is high? So what happens if insulin is high? Well, insulin being high is a message to the body to be storing calories as fat. So let's say that you still need 2,000 calories, right? And you give your body 1,500 calories from food. If insulin is high, the body is unable to get the additional 500 calories that it needs from fat. So insulin inhibits lipolysis. What does that mean? It means insulin being high makes it impossible or very difficult for the body to burn fat for the extra 500 calories that it needs. And so guess what the body's going to do? The body is going to make compensatory changes, and it's going to lower the total amount of calories that it burns each day. Because insulin is high, it has to compensate. And so now you've cut your calories by 500, but you're treading water. And it's all because insulin is high. So how do we force insulin lower? And Anna just gave a great description of how to do that. Let me explain to all those of you that are new how we do it on this protocol. So if you're new and you're like, okay, what did Elisa and Samson do, and what is Anna talking about, right? What we do on this protocol, if this is breakfast and this is lunch and this is dinner, what most of us are doing is we are forcing insulin down. And we do this by taking breaks from food. Many of us are skipping breakfast, okay? Now, when you skip breakfast, you force insulin down. Insulin being down means that the body, like Anna said, you're eating your belly fat, you're eating your love handles for breakfast. The body is still getting calories, but it's getting those calories from fat. Now, if that sounds a little difficult to you to skip breakfast, I love breakfast, right? If that sounds difficult for you, we're going to show you how to make it super duper easy. Now, before our meals, Anna talked about having fiber, the right types of fiber before we eat lunch or dinner, before we eat the carbs especially, because this will help limit the blood sugar and insulin response. This also helps us feel fuller for longer, all right? So in a perfect world, you would be fine to fast. You'd have dietary discipline, right? And in a perfect world, you would have a garden salad in your back pocket 24/7 with a bunch of whole herbs and veggies and seeds with tons of different fibers, right? And so in a perfect world, fasting would be easy and fiber would be easy. Obviously, we're not perfect with our discipline and we're not perfect with, nobody has a garden salad in their back pocket 24/7, right? And so what we're doing on this protocol is we're essentially adding some tools to make it very, very easy. Now, what I'm showing you here is not a gimmick or a snake oil thing. It is not just some supplement that we're saying is going to heal the world, okay? This is different. So this is something that has been studied now at 20 plus different institutions, okay? It was originally developed by Rexall, and it's been studied by the Cleveland Clinic, which is the #1 heart hospital in the world. It's been studied a bunch of different places, okay? It is safe, it is natural, there are no drugs in it, and it makes fasting and fiber super duper easy, okay? So it comes in two parts. The first part is something that we do whenever we're not eating. So between meals, or if you're going to do some intermittent fasting even, anytime you're fasting, you can sip the Unimate. This is a concentrated extract of the yerba mate plant, and it naturally raises GLP-1 by 60 to 70% with no drugs, no shots, no Ozempic, right? It's the natural GLP-1 in your body. When GLP-1 goes up like that, guess what goes down? Food noise. It makes me forget about food. In fact, I have not had dinner yet. I think I had lunch around 1 o'clock. So I'm like almost 8 hours into a fast right now, sipping the Unimate. I don't even think about food, right? I'm going to have dinner soon. And just before eating dinner, I'm going to have a packet of fiber. This is not just any fiber. This is not psyllium husk or benefiber or any of that. This is a blend of the most potent and I would say viscous fibers that I have been able to find on planet Earth. And by having it before the meals, it solves the problem of the blood sugar and the insulin spikes. And that was studied at the University of Sydney, which is the home of the glycemic index. They proved that this would be a disruptive protocol, right? And so this protocol is so simple. Whenever I'm not eating, I sip the yellow one. Right before my largest meal each day, I take the orange one. And in some cases, I'll even do 2 orange ones a day. And in fact, every day, I personally like to have a fiber before each meal. But it's that simple, okay? Now, the beauty of this is life has gotten very expensive. I don't know about you, but I feel like the cost of living is getting crazy, right? This protocol is literally cost neutral. It will save you money. If you save money on this protocol, would you put a save money in the chat for me? I want people to see how much money is saved on this protocol. And it's really not rocket science. Okay, look at that. Save, save, save. Okay, it's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. It's basic math. Let me ask you a question. How much does the average meal cost you today? Let's say you're going cheap. Let's say you're getting fast food. Most people that I ask this question to say that a fast food meal these days costs $8 to $10, right? When you skip a meal, you're going to create some savings. We're going to take that savings and use it to cover the cost of the protocol. It costs $5.30 per day to use the protocol. All right. It literally pays for itself. Now, if there's anybody on here who is skeptical, maybe there's a medical professional who has not yet heard of this, let me just give some quick information for the skeptics, okay? So, number one, this is listed. In fact, if you're medical, if you're one of the doctors, nurses, dietitians, diabetes educators, health educators, if you're a medical, if you work in the medical community, would you write medical in the chat for me? I want people to see how many medical professionals are all about this. I saw several doctors in the chat. So medical professionals love this protocol. And the reasons why they love it is number one, it is very, very clinically tested. It's been studied over and over. But number two, it's in the physician's desk reference. So any doctor or medical professional can look it up in the physician's desk reference and read all about it. The other thing about it, it is absolutely guaranteed to work. Anybody that uses it properly and is consistent can get a 90-day money-back guarantee. All right. And the last thing is it is now HSA